This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, the Jock, Adam Straczynski. On today's show, we've got a ton for you. The show is bursting at the seams. We've got a major announcement of somebody leaving WWE, a ton of injury news, what's going on with Vince McMahon and Stephanie, as well as a media company possibly controlling what's going on with a wrestler. We're going to get into all of that during the news and notes. Of course, we're going to take a look at what's taking place with AEW, WWE. We might touch on Impact. We'll see what the timing looks like here. Of course, we have a recap with the results from Hell in the Cell that we got to get into and break down. And doing it with me, as always, he's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macroon. What's up, cuz?
Man, what a week of wrestling. You had one of the greatest performers show up on AEW. You had a performance at a pay-per-view that will go down for the ages. Much to debate about, much to get into. I've looked forward to this recording since basically Thursday, and I can't wait to break it all down, cuz what are we going first? So much to get to. Are we starting off with Hell in a Cell and the crazy shit that we just saw this past weekend at a pay-per-view?
Yeah, let's start with Hell in the Cell. I want to know what your thoughts were on this pay-per-view, because going into this, I wasn't excited for it. There was really one match that I wanted to see. And then on Saturday night, Sunday, things started to kind of leak out about possibly the one wrestler in that match being injured. But overall, what were your thoughts on this pay-per-view? Because I really thought this pay-per-view was carried by two matches. And one of those matches I wasn't even sure was going to take place.
Yeah, it was a wild event. Now, I'll say this. Going into it, they really did not do a good job of promoting a lot of the matches. It just kind of had a feel of like, why didn't I think the overriding thought that I put on my notes is, why weren't the women in a Hell in a Cell too?
Yeah.
Like, why weren't they in a Hell in a Cell situation, in that they kicked off the show in a tremendous way to set the scene in one of the great women's matches you're going to see. I think that they might have deserved to kind of get a little bit more rugged inside the cage. But all in all, when you have what we're going to talk about at the end, it just is going to go down as a pay-per-view that people will pay attention to and look back on and dissect, because what Cody Rhodes did and Seth Rollins will go down as one of the feats of all time in terms of courage, in terms of being for the brand, doing everything you can to live up to expectations. And so Hell in a Cell is going to be marked by Cody Seth 3. And man, what a pay-per-view, top to bottom, especially when it built up to the crescendo that was the main event.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think to kick off the show, we've got Bianca Bel-Air taking on Becky Lynch and Asuka defending her championship. I thought this was a really good story. I thought they did a really good job telling a story here. Basically, throughout the match, Becky Lynch tries to go for the cheap pin, tries to get this over quickly. And in the end, it's Becky hitting the manhandle slam on Asuka. Bianca Belair comes in from the back, throws Becky Lynch out, and then covers Asuka for the 1-2-3. Becky's obviously devastated. Asuka has to pick her broken self up off the mat. And in the end, I think the right person probably wins here. I don't think either one of us are usually a huge fan of three-way matches. And in this case, I think you could have went any way you really wanted, and you could have made an argument for the right winner. But I think leaving the belt on Bianca Belair and kind of moving forward with her, it's just, you have to find a new challenger for her. At this point, everything with Becky Lynch, it's similar to the Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. Everything with them is just getting a little bit old, a little bit tired. You either need to figure out a new way to freshen it up, or you got to move on. I thought this was a really good match. This was one of the two matches that I really enjoyed on this pay-per-view.
I loved it. I thought that Asuka, very underrated, moved smoothly, really believable. Now, was the ending worthy of the match that you had? You had basically Becky make a move, do a solid thing to have an opportunity to win, only to have Bianca Belair just throw her out and take advantage of Asuka. Was that the best way to do it? I just felt like with that match, why not have an opportunity just to have Bianca do a power move and 1, 2, 3 over Asuka?
Well, I think it showed a little strategery, to pull a word from George W. Bush. And I think it kind of played into what has taken place with this match as it kind of unfolded. Because remember, Becky Lynch was trying to do that all match long, and then she finally gets her comeuppance when Bianca Belair does it to get the pin. So I think it's just it's an interesting way to tell a story. It's basically Becky gets what she deserves, and Bianca's the one executing it. So look, I understand what you're saying. We always like seeing a KOD, or we like seeing Bianca Belair do one of her massive power moves because she is so physically strong. But I think in this case, it just tells a more interesting story. It shows that she can actually outwit you. She doesn't outwit you. She can also get on that level. Like Becky is on that low down dirty level. She is the heel. Bianca Belair can get on that level, and if she can do whatever she's going to have to do to win that title. And if you watched any of the pre-show, that was something that they talked about. That was something that they had thrown around quite a bit, was who's going to be the person to get on that level to do whatever it takes to win. And everybody was saying Becky Lynch because she's the heel. She's willing to take it to the extremes to win the championship. Well, Bianca Belair got on Becky Lynch's level and actually won and retained her championship. So that's kind of why I think they did it that way. After that, we end up having Cedric Alexander provide a little bit of interference, and Bobby Lashley is allowed to spear Omos and then make MVP tap out to the Hurt Lock. Kevin Owens wins with 2 super kicks and a stunner to put Ezekiel to sleep. I was a little bit surprised at how that match unfolded. I was really thinking Ezekiel would get a little bit more run, a little bit more time to shine. Instead, Kevin Owens gets the win. The 2 super kicks and the stunner, I think, is a really nice way to finish it because he was struggling to execute the stunner as the match unfolded. But I was surprised at this finish. I know you picked Kevin Owens when we did our predictions, and we're going to talk about what you did with the predictions coming up here in a few moments. But you picked Kevin Owens to win this. What did you think about how this match finished?
I thought it was worthy. Kevin Owens has to get over. I mean, look, if Kevin Owens would have lost, that would have been a major setback in his career. Kevin Owens is box office. He has to win feuds. Kevin Owens has to be elevated to past where he's at. He needs a belt. He needs attention, mic time. He is making garbage segments interesting. Like, really, at the basic level, and Kenny asked in the group chat, like, what was this feud about again? He forgot. I'm like...
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that was a perfect question because... Honestly, I wasn't really 100% sure what this feud was about.
Yeah, Kevin hates liars. He hates the fact that Elias/Ezekiel is going out there and saying things that aren't true. And that's what it was. And he made it interesting. And they're still doing it. And I'm still kind of intrigued by it. So Kevin Owens is now entering that realm of being box office where you can say, just go do this and make it happen. And he's doing it. So that's what was really fabulous about him winning. And he got over. And the match was pretty okay. You know, for me,
like, it wasn't a horrible match by any means. It was actually very good. It was very entertaining.
Very entertaining. Best way to put it.
Judgment Day ends up winning with an edge spear, and he ends up pinning Finn Balor. Now, this has repercussions. This whole pay-per-view has repercussions on what's going to happen on Monday night. This ends up taking place. I thought this was a good match. I wasn't blown away by anything. I thought AJ Styles getting busted open near the end of the match was a little bit weird. I tried going back to figure out where he actually got his head clunked and where he got cut open. At the very, very end of the match, you can see the medical officials running over to AJ Styles to basically help repair him and get him patched up and get him to the back. But what did you make of the Judgment Day's win over AJ Styles, Finn Balor, and Liv Morgan?
You know, I would have liked to have AJ Styles win it, but it didn't make any sense in that realm. So, you know, obviously, on the other side of the coin, I felt like Finn Balor and AJ Styles could have had a marquee group, but with things that occurred, it was never going to go down that way. So the right team won, especially with how it all played out following the end of the match and what happened on Monday Night Raw. So good match, very interesting. I'm curious to see how Rhea Ripley progresses from this group. I think she has the most to gain from being in this.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's spot on. Really good analysis by you because she does have the most to gain, and I think her character can progress the most throughout this group and being attached to these two guys. Madcap Moss looked impressive in a revenge match where he used the chair and the steel steps to beat Happy Corbin. Theory ends up beating the hometown kid, Mustafa Ali. He basically came out in some Chicago Bulls gear, and at that moment in time, you knew he wasn't winning at all. There was no chance in hell. Now, match of the night. Again, like we said, Saturday night, Sunday, things start to leak out that Cody Rhodes is dealing with a torn pec. The tendon that attaches your pectoral muscle, it attaches up into your arm. That tendon is ripped off the bone. And Cody ends up going into this match, and there's a lot of back and forth. Nobody's really sure what's going on. WWE goes out of its way to really discredit the reports, which in actuality are true. I mean, there were some fine details that WWE had to shed some light on. This happened during a training session. Like he heard it during Monday Night Raw when him and Seth got into it in the crowd. And then he was bench pressing. When he was bench pressing, he ended up tearing the tendon off the bone and ended up snapping. And he shows up in the ring, and nobody's really sure if this match is even going to go on. There was a lot of debate, and there was a lot of confusion if this was going to take place, because this match appeared to have been put on the card, pulled off the card, put on the card, pulled off the card. Cody Rhodes ends up speaking to the medical staff, and they're like, you're not going to hurt it anymore. The damage is already done, so if you want to go, you can go. Cody fights to go and wrestle this match, gets in the ring, and I want to know what your initial reaction was when he took off his jacket, because online people were questioning whether it was makeup or not. There was no makeup. His titty was sagging, and it was purple. It was purple all the way down through the entire pec region and down into his arm, all the way to his elbow. Absolutely bonkers to see this in real life and watch this man work, because it was absolutely insane. And I thought the two of these guys in this ring did a really good job. One, to protect Cody. Two, to protect that arm. In the end, Cody ends up defeating Seth Rollins. We had a pedigree. We had two of Cody Rhodes' finishing moves. It was absolutely bonkers. But what was your initial reaction when he took his jacket off and you got to see how much damage was showing through the skin?
Well, first, I bought that it was a work. I was thinking, well, WWE is doing a lot of promotion, a lot of talk about this, and a lot of repetitive type of stuff online and via social media. So I was really hoping it was a work, because why would they? I think the natural assumption is, why would they let the man work? Why would they? So bottom line, and they had the match last, so you're intrigued. So when he takes his coat off, the realization hit that, oh no, push is done. We're not seeing him after this match. So that's where my thought was, great. Look, for me, and I respect those that give him the credit, the ultimate credit for working the match, and not basically when you tear it off the bone, I guess the idea is that he's not going to hurt it anymore. I am more now in line with, I want to see Cody Rhodes have another 15-year run in the ring. So doing this match would have ruined the pay-per-view, but you could have did a lot of creative things in the way of writing it off. I didn't need to see the match. Look, it's 2022. We're all about extending careers. We're all about making sure the health and safety of these athletes is really at the forefront. So for me, my first thought was, no, we're going to not see him for a month or 2 or 3, because he had a 2-month run that was elevating him to the point of being main event status. And now that has come to a close. Just like everybody else, it was like, oh, no, it's real. So the realization sinks in. He's going to be hurt. He's going to have surgery. So it went to real life for me. The match was great. But permeating for me was just the notion that he probably shouldn't have did the match. I mean, yeah, great. Of course he's supposed to. Like, you literally could have did it where Vince, you could have made it real life into the story. Cody Rhodes is at Gorilla walking out with his gear, and Vince is like, are you crazy? You're not going to go out there. And then you could start off a little bit of making Vince a heel, or somebody else, or one of the backstage goons that they got there. Bruce Pritchard, Kevin Dunn, anybody could have had, Stephanie, anybody get heat, Triple H. I mean, literally, I'm just doing this on the fly as we're recording this. He's about to go out there. You're making it like this whole permeating. Is he going to go out there? Is he not going to go out there? He's ready. You get the camera. Cody's going to go out there. Oh my God. And then who steps into the camera? Triple H. He's like, show's over. Boom. You end, and then you're pissed because you don't know what's happening. Did Triple H pull him? Did you have this intrigue? Like, they did it in a way to obviously elevate Cody Rhodes, but I feel like they could have told more of a wrestling story with it to make him go away. Because listen, Cody Rhodes is a legend, and look, I go into it saying, if you're going to step foot into a ring where some guy 300 pounds is going to pick you up and body slam you, you have my respect. You have it already. You get my money when you go. You get the respect. I watch you. I podcast about you. I take time to read what you're doing. I've gone and met the man and hugged him and said, hey, we appreciate you sacrificing for our entertainment. I don't need to see more of it. Like, I don't need to see more of Cody Rhodes. I need to see him healthy and good. So I would have liked to have been a little bit more creative to write him off. But unfortunately, it was a done deal. It would have been cool. You bring it full circle if Triple H steps in and says, no deal, no dice. And then Triple H walks out and does something, and then, you figure something out. But kudos to, listen, bottom line, whether I agree or disagree is irrelevant. He went out there for the fans, for his legacy, for the boys, for the brand, for the love of the game. And he did it. So for that, you get a standing ovation, and you get the 5-star from Meltzer. You get the praise. You get the respect from every wrestler in the wrestling world, because probably 99.9% of people are not showing up out there to wrestle that match.
Yeah, this will probably go down as Cody Rhodes' match of his career, especially dealing with everything that he's dealt with. And this was a match that I don't think any of us really wanted to see. We didn't want to see Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins 3. We didn't need to see it, but we got it. And I thought it was a great climax. So this was a great way to finish this entire storyline off. I thought the way that this has unfolded, with Cody showing up to the ring with the torn pec, him gutting through it and wrestling through it, him getting the win the way he got the win, I thought it was absolutely fantastic the way it was all done. I appreciate him going out and wrestling through it. Like you said, didn't have to do it, but he was the one who wanted to do it. He was the one that fought to do it. And because of it, I totally appreciate what he did. I thought it was a great way to cap off a pay-per-view. I thought it was a fantastic match. Like I said, it's going to go down as one of the matches of his career. All of that being said, Doc, you end up sweeping the picks. You pick up another win, back-to-back weeks where you pick up a win. I'm now on a losing streak. I hold a 3-point lead. You are now cutting into my lead. At one point, I had a 5-point lead. You are now cutting into my lead on calling the card. I've got a 6.5 to 3.5 lead. You are picking up steam, and you are picking up pace on me. But this pay-per-view and calling the card all leads to what
Thanks, John. Good stuff.
Monday night. And on Monday Night Raw, Cody Rhodes comes out, cuts an impassioned promo, only to be interrupted by Seth Rollins. In this promo, he does his little cry thing, starts talking about his daughter, gets a little bit emotional and choked up. Seth Rollins comes down and pays him his dues and basically says, I still don't like you, but I respect you. Shook his hand, brought him in close, and it was a really, really nice moment. As Seth Rollins leaves, Cody Rhodes stands in the ring one more time and then walks up the ramp. As he's walking up the ramp, Seth Rollins comes out only to attack him with the sledgehammer. Where are we going with this feud? Because now Cody Rhodes has been written off, has had successful surgery to repair the pec tendon. I'm not sure where we're going with this feud. I thought we could have just left this the way it was. Like, everybody understood what the hell was going on, right? Like, you didn't have to write Cody Rhodes off TV. Cody Rhodes has a torn pec. We all know he's going to go away. Instead, you have Seth Rollins attack him with a sledgehammer after basically paying him his dues, as you say, giving him his flowers. What are we doing with this feud? Please help me out.
You have to establish that Seth Rollins is a heel. So, look,
it's been established. Yeah, everybody knows.
But heels do heel stuff, so you always you go back to it. And despite losing,
that's a cop out. Heels do heel stuff.
Heels do heel stuff. That's what you're supposed to do. You think Seth Rollins and his egomaniacal ways is going to allow Cody Rhodes to win 3 times? No, he gets to say, in the world of wrestling, oh, you beat me 3 times, but look, I ended your time. I ended your push. So remember that, heels.
It was all part of my master plan.
All part of the master plan, baby. And, the face is going to say, well, I beat you all the time. So it'll be revisited again down the road. So it's not the end. Maybe Cody will have an opportunity to defeat Seth in a match with a belt on the line. So it'll go down. It's wrestling. It's good. It's done for now. 3 matches is all I need to see now. Hopefully Cody can come back after 5-6 months. Maybe the Royal Rumble. It just sucks all the way around to not have Cody around. It's just, it. He's gone. He's injured. So him teasing a return at Money in the Bank 4 weeks later. John Cena is the staple. He was supposed to be gone for a long time. He came back, but let's just be healthy. And it does, really, really for me, opens the can of worms. Is Cody worth putting a belt on? Because when you do it, if you're going to have him beat Roman Reigns, you can't have him have a short, shitty run now like CM Punk is going to have, because an injury derails it. It's done. CM Punk's reign right now was a wash. Great. He won it. Great moment. Great segment. But we're now having side stuff, and it just put a big taint on it. So I'm disappointed all the way around that he's hurt, but this is where we're at with it.
Yeah, it sucks that we're here, because it really feels as though Cody Rhodes is really picking up steam, and he was the number one babyface of this company, and he owned it, and he had finally. The thing is, with this injury, it helps cement that he is the number one good guy in WWE. So it sucks that it took an injury like this to really cement his place in the company, and now obviously he has to go away. Because of the injury, we have a couple of things that are taking place. So you obviously lose your number one babyface. WWE goes into complete panic mode because they do a bad job of developing stars, and what happens? Well, Judgment Day comes out, all right, and they basically turn on Edge. Finn Balor is now the new leader. I want to get into what took place there, but I do want to provide some context as to why this took place. A couple of different things. Just established their number one babyface goes down with the injury. They lose him. They don't really have a number two babyface that they can work with, or anybody who's as over as Cody Rhodes. So what do? You turn Edge face, which is silly to me. But it's what you kind of do, and that's kind of what you've seen here. On top of that, WWE Creative wants to go in a different direction. They want to take the Judgment Day into a supernatural direction. They want to do ghosts and spooky stuff and scary stuff. Instead, Edge wants more of a macabre theme. And mind you, this whole thing with the Judgment Day is Edge's idea. WWE Creative is taking it away from him and saying, no, we're going to go more supernatural. Edge is like, no, we need to stay more macabre. And they go back and forth. They end up writing Edge out of the group. So what happens? Judgment Day turns on Edge on Monday Night Raw. After arguably their biggest win as a trio, they turn on Edge. Finn Balor is introduced as the new leader. What did you make of all of this? Because when this was unfolding, I think we all kind of had an idea that Finn could be the next member of the Judgment Day. And I was like, all right, cool. As long as we get the Demon, right? Like, if he's going to go into the Judgment Day, I need the Demon. I need that side of him to come out. I don't need just regular Finn. I need Demon Finn, because Demon Finn is special. And what ends up happening is you have Damian Priest, you have Rhea Ripley, basically introduce Finn Balor, and then say to Edge, you're the weak link in this group, which makes no sense because Edge was the one who got the pin on Finn Balor the night before, and arguably the group's biggest win. It just doesn't make sense to me the way they went about this, and I did not like it. I thought this was poor. I thought this was rushed. You basically had a week to kind of figure out what you wanted to do after Cody Rhodes gets hurt. You didn't have to rush anything. Instead, they rushed it, and what they gave us, I thought, was a pile of crap. What did you make of Judgment Day turning on Edge and Finn Balor now being the new leader? Mind you, I don't mind Finn being the new leader, but I did not like them turning on Edge.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I think it's the best solution. What else was going to be better? I think that's just the best that you could come up with because of the fact that you now have a feud you can pay attention to. Edge needs to be a face. Unfortunately, based on everything that happened, there's nothing more you could have did other than have Finn Balor join and then the reign of terror continues, but you need a face. You know, you could have maybe switched The Miz. You could have did a lot of things, but on the fly, that's what they did.
You do still have AJ Styles, and he's a guy who can carry a company. We know this.
Yeah, but I think
you help elevate AJ Styles, and you have him basically take umbrage with Finn joining the Judgment Day after the night that they just had where they ended up losing. Edge shows up. He's got his whole head stitched up because he got busted open. Calls out Finn Balor like, we're supposed to be boys. You turned your back on us. Liv Morgan could be in the back being a cheerleader. That helps boost Edge. Edge and Finn get into a match. And AJ Styles and Finn end up getting into a match. AJ Styles ends up dominating Finn in the match, only to have the Judgment Day come out and just pick him apart. Instant babyface. instantly elevated up the card, and that's your guy who can help carry your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a great idea. But I feel like they wanted to go in that direction. Maybe bigger things ahead for AJ Styles. So you never know. We have to wait and see what's up with AJ Styles. So it's what they decided to do. I'm curious, though. I'm very happy to see what Edge can do now because Edge is now going to be at the height of being pissed off, and the Judgment Day has to be knocked down a notch. So it's going to be interesting to see. Finn Balor being heel. Let's see how creative this gets.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of see what takes place. Now, Rhea Ripley ends up getting a match later on in the night, and just to show you that this was just kind of thrown together, Rhea Ripley basically comes out, and on her graphic it has Edge still being listed. It's really weird and kind of wonky sometimes when you find these disconnects in what WWE is serving you. Rhea Ripley ends up winning a fatal 4-way match. She now has a title shot at Money in the Bank with Bianca Belair. Was this the right call? Was she the one who should have got that title shot? Mind you, in this match, you had the likes of Alexa Bliss, who you could see possibly doing some major damage. I have no idea what they're doing with Alexa Bliss right now, and we all know that she's incredible. Was Rhea Ripley the right call to get the nod to take on Bianca Belair at Money in the Bank?
Absolutely. It's money. I want to see it. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I thought she was the right call. And I think Rhea Ripley taking the belt off of Bianca is really interesting. I think you can do a lot. And I think you could have Bianca chased for her belt back. And I think that could be a story that you could really sink your teeth in. And Rhea being a heel, I feel like you could do some really, really good work with her working as a heel champion. It'll be interesting to see how they play this out. Money in the Bank is only a couple weeks away. I really do feel like we're getting hit with pay-per-views left and right. They're just kind of smashing stuff together. We both don't really like that, but it'll be interesting to see what takes place here. Now, I feel like you got some good stuff from the women's division. You got some really bad stuff from the women's division. Becky Lynch and Asuka in a 24/7 match. I feel like that was a complete waste. On top of that, Dana Brooke ends up getting the win. I mean, obviously she's going to retain her championship, but what? What are we doing here? Becky Lynch and Asuka are two of your biggest female stars, and you're putting them in a comedic bit for the 24/7 belt? What is at some point is WWE creative like, I don't know what to do. Let's just have this happen. They just start throwing stuff at the wall, right? Like they have a dartboard on the wall, and they're like, all right, what do we do? And it's like title opportunities, and they just throw a dart, and it says 24/7. It's like, all right, cool. Wrestlers. So it'll like throw it. It'll be like champion, and it'll be like, okay, versus who? Like, oh, Becky Lynch. All right, now how can we spice this up? Let's just go. What the hell are we doing with Becky Lynch and Asuka in a 24/7 match?
I didn't like it. I can't believe we have to even talk about it. It was stupid. Becky's like, I will not lose belts anymore, so I'm going to be the 24/7 champ. It's like, beep, next, bad segment.
It just I just didn't get it. And on top of it, this is probably the most we've ever talked about the 24/7 belt. Because Becky Lynch was in it. So if you're looking to help elevate the 24/7 belt, sure, but that's not what you were looking to do. It was a total, sometimes WWE and their creative is just so piss poor. Something I really want to get into, and this has been building a lot on social media. If you've watched if you follow John Cena on social media, if you follow Austin Theory on social media, or if you read anything that basically shows you some of their Twitter interactions, you see this coming. John Cena is coming back to Monday Night Raw. It'll be about 2 weeks before he's back. Austin Theory has been calling him out for weeks now. For weeks. And the way I see this playing out, similar to what you just said early on in the show, John Cena and Austin Theory are going to have a match at SummerSlam. I want to know what you think about this, because I've got my own thoughts about it. And I kind of want to get your perspective and your opinion on it. John Cena, Austin Theory, how do you see this playing out, and why do you think this plays out?
Theory goes over. He's a bigger star. He gets increased shine in the spotlight, and it is perfect for business. It's absolutely 1, 2, 3, John Cena loses. That has to happen. Or if, because John Cena lost last year's run, you have John Cena, really handle business, but it's not for a title. And you have him really put Austin Theory in his place by whooping his ass. And you win either way. I think that what's best for business is to elevate in any way possible Austin Theory. That has to be the end game. However you get there, I'm okay with it. I would love to see Cena win after a feud, after, coming back, because obviously the face comes back. As long as potentially then, you get the same thing that Seth Rollins did to Cody, where, Cena's celebrating and then Theory comes out with Vince and does something to, write him off again or whatever the reason is. But either way, Theory has to come away a bigger star, and that has to be the permeating, overriding goal of the feud. But I think what's going to end up happening is Theory's going to win. He has to win because he's a full-timer.
Yeah, I think Theory wins. And I think what this sets up for a passing of the torch. Remember, John Cena was the hand-picked guy by Vince McMahon to usher in a brand new era of WWE. Austin Theory is the hand-picked guy of Vince McMahon. I think what you have is you've got a passing of the torch. Austin Theory ends up winning. I think, like you said, this plays out at SummerSlam, which will be at the end of July, very beginning of August. And Austin Theory goes over, beats John Cena. And here is the passing of the crown, the passing of the torch, if you will, from one era into another era. And I think that's how this sets up, and I think that's why this sets up. You want to do a quick touch on Impact and what we've got going on with Impact?
Yeah, absolutely. A good week going on there. Real quickly, any scenario in John Cena wins in your mind before we get to Impact? Can John Cena beat Theory to have this work in any kind of way? Could you see a creative way where Cena wins and you still get the passing of the torch in the situation?
Yeah, I could see John Cena winning it because it's John Cena. But if you're looking to pass the torch and you're looking to establish your next guy, he has to go over. He has to beat John Cena. That's the only way that works for me.
Okay, absolutely. Now, we're 10 days away from Slammiversary. It's the big one. It's the big one for Impact. So you start off with Rosemary taking on Tenille Dashwood. Real interesting. Post-match beatdown from Dashwood, and Rain brought out Taya Valkyrie, who made the save for her sometimes friend. It was good, a good start. But, again, right now with Impact, the women are taking a little bit of the backseat in regards to the men. But it was kind of more, the beginning, more about the reunion that was going to take place. It was a good match. I'd really like to see Tenille Dashwood kind of take a step forward in things going on, but it's not the case. You follow that up with Steve Macklin taking on PCO. Good match. I think after the women, it was a real good match in regards to both guys taking risks, doing everything you can, and handling business. Macklin seizing an opening created by a distraction, downed the undead competitor, and scored another impressive victory this week. Josh Alexander, the champ, taking on Joe Daring, and another physical encounter. You get some good wrestling, some good action, and I think that when you look at Josh Alexander, I think that you have a real good opportunity to keep moving forward with a guy that can carry a company. I like the fact that I think that Violent by Design is also up and coming. You handle everything well and everything goes good, but in the end, you're not going to take the shine away from Josh Alexander. Honor No More and Frankie Kazarian take on the Motor City Machine Guns. Good stuff there. It appeared as though the babyfaces were on their way to a victory, but the ferocity of Honor No More drove them to the W. Good match all the way around, and it highlighted the end of Impact. And you look at it when you see the likes of, Honor No More, Frankie Kazarian, Motor City Machine Guns. It was a fantastic main event. Sabin kicking out of a three-on-one combinations at the hands of his opponents was a great spot, maybe even the highlight of the show. The ankle smashing of Heath sets up a future rivalry between Honor No More, him, and Rhino in the near future. So on your way to Slammiversary, it was a B- show. Could have had a lot more, but in the end, it was a good couple hours of wrestling in the mix there ahead of Slammiversary. You want to see more in regards to the top-end guys, but a lot of guys are hurt. A lot of guys are doing their things, and, I thought that one of the one of the good moments was Sami Callihan cutting a threatening promo on the former world champion Moose. Was really, really something to see. So Impact was good, B-.
Impact doing more good things, and you get that crossover with some of the AEW guys. Speaking of AEW, we had their Casino Battle Royale, and I'll be honest with you, I kind of felt like it felt rushed. I kind of felt like it was a little bit underwhelming with some of the contestants that were involved in it. And this was for a chance to face Jon Moxley later on in the evening on Dynamite to go on to the Forbidden Door pay-per-view and wrestle for the interim AEW championship. In the end, Kyle O'Reilly comes out the winner of the Casino Battle Royale. Mind you, this doesn't have guys like Chris Jericho, who's off for a little bit doing some stuff with Fozzy. This doesn't have a lot of bigger name stars like Bryan Danielson. Doesn't have guys like Adam Cole. Doesn't have a lot of the upper echelon talent in it. You end up with basically the Ass Boys in it, which look, I find them hilarious. It's there's just a lot of it almost felt like a ton of mid card guys in this match.
Yeah,
Kyle O'Reilly comes out the winner. Do you have an issue with Kyle O'Reilly winning the Casino Battle Royale, or did you have an issue with the Casino Battle Royale at all?
No, I didn't have an issue knowing what it was afterwards, knowing what's going on with different feuds. It basically, you said it. Kyle O'Reilly is the best of the mid card, and he got the opportunity, so I was okay with it.
But doesn't it feel like because the Joker ends up being Andrade?
Yep.
Don't you feel like Andrade would have been a better choice to win this match?
Well,
I feel like you could have did a little bit more with Andrade than you. It would have made, at least going later on into the evening, it would have made the match between Jon Moxley and Andrade a little bit more interesting. Because I'll be honest with you, once Kyle O'Reilly won, I was like, okay, cool, Jon Moxley's winning.
Yeah. It took out all the intrigue of the main event, whereas the other you wouldn't have known, huh?
Yeah, it would just like kind of kept you a little bit more on the edge of your seat. I mean, to me, it just felt like a formality. Like it was a good, like we'll talk more about what takes place at the end of the night here coming up. But to me, it just kind of felt like you were just waiting for Moxley to get over at that point.
Yeah,
I felt like nothing against Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly's getting a huge push right now.
Yes.
He's getting inserted in a lot of matches. He looks really good in a lot of matches. He's doing a really nice job. He's just not on that level yet. I don't believe in him as being a world champion. I don't believe he's necessarily worthy of that. Now, Andrade, we haven't seen in forever because he's been on his honeymoon with Charlotte Flair. They were recently married. He ends up coming back. Andrade, I feel like, has that it factor and has that carryover from when he was in WWE, where he feels like he's a little bit of a bigger star than probably what he really is. And it feels like him versus Moxley would be a more of a gripping match and something that would keep you a little bit more interested all the way through a show. And that was my big issue with it. Like, again, Kyle O'Reilly, good enough. Just felt like you could have went in a different direction. In the end, I don't think it necessarily really matters. It's just kind of what it is. But you have an issue with AEW's new belt. The Mid-Atlantic, the All-Atlantic Championship. What's your big issue with this belt? Because it's a beautiful belt.
It's a nice belt. I don't have an issue with the belt per se. It's just I don't like the name. All Atlantic Championship. You have the flags. I understand it's in the vein of Intercontinental Championship.
Well, you mean to tell me that you don't like the Japanese flag when Japan is in the Pacific, not the Atlantic Ocean?
Okay. See, don't let facts get in the way of a good story. See, exactly. You look at it and you say, it kind of has also a feel of, it looks kind of similar to the world title belt, maybe not as glamorous. Like you could do something different, like a little bit of a different design. It kind of has a feel of like that square kind of round belt that you have there. It's nice. It'll be cool, but I would have looked something a little bit different, a little bit more unique in regards to everything around the All-Atlantic Champion. But I think we know now it's more important who carries it for the first time. And the likes of those who are competing for it is going to be really cool. And I think we have some contenders that could win it.
Yeah, this is my issue with it, right? I don't know if AEW needed another belt. We complain about WWE having too many belts. I feel like AEW is kind of on the way there, right? I mean, you have the TNT belt, which was supposed to be held in the same regard as the AEW championship. Obviously, it's not. It is more of that mid-tier, mid-card title belt. It has just kind of where it's fallen. Honestly, the AEW championship at this point doesn't feel as special to me as it once did, which is saying a lot because for the longest time, I felt like that was one of the more important wrestling belts in all of wrestling in just such a short period of time. Now you introduce another belt. At what point does AEW become very similar to WWE, where you've got a belt for everything? You made your bed right, you get a championship belt. You ate well at catering. Here's another belt. That's kind of where I feel like we're going with this. And I know I'm exaggerating a little bit, but to me, I just don't necessarily think we needed another belt. Like if you want to do something, you've got a women's championship belt that you do a shit job of elevating. You've got a TBS championship belt that you do an okay job of elevating. You've got a TNT championship belt that has just kind of been ran through the mud here with the garbage segments that we've given it. And now you're going to have two AEW championship belts. Why the hell do we need to introduce another belt into all of this? It just doesn't make sense. On top of that, you've got all of the Ring of Honor belts. Like at some point, everybody in this company will have a belt on.
Right?
Do you know what I'm saying?
Every match is a title match.
Yeah, it's kind of what it feels like where we're going here. To me, I just don't think we necessarily needed it. I think it's a beautiful belt. I just don't think we needed it. It was just unnecessary. I want to get your opinions on Will Ospreay showing up and the United Empire showing up, making their AEW debut. Look, I'm a huge fan of Will Ospreay. I was blown away when he showed up. I was like, what? What? Are you serious? And then to see what took place on Rampage, they end up losing, which, again, I'm not surprised. Tony Khan books all of AEW guys to win over everybody. It does really and truly. I think Tony Khan needs to understand it does a little bit more for storytelling if your guys are losing. If the New Japan guys come in and get a win, whether it be by hook or by crook, if they get a win, it's a little bit more interesting. Instead, Will Ospreay and the United Kingdom take the L on Rampage. What did you make of Will Ospreay's debut on Dynamite and then the match on Rampage?
I was disappointed he lost. I thought his debut was awesome against FTR. The crowd was like, holy shit. It was very surprising, shocking. Obviously, they did a good job on the announce team to say, hey, this is one of the top 5 guys in the world. You can't have him lose. I mean, come on. You're trying to portray this guy as a winner. And I know he can't come in and really manhandle FTR right away, but you got to establish this guy as a winner because half the people don't really know who he is. Bad. It was I couldn't believe that might be one of the worst decisions they made was not making Will Ospreay the legend that he is overseas and not having him just win. And because now, is it more believable if he gets over at a pay-per-view? No. So I thought that was a crazy decision. I'm shocked.
Yeah, to me, I don't know what AEW is trying to do because we're huge wrestling fans. We watch New Japan. We follow all the things. If you're just a casual AEW fan, you don't watch New Japan. You have no idea who these guys are. You have no idea how important these guys are. I had to spend 5 or 10 minutes on Friday night explaining to the girlfriend who Will Ospreay is and why it's such a big deal that he's here. And it's just because she's new to wrestling. She doesn't watch a ton of New Japan. The only New Japan she watches is the stuff that I basically like, here, you got to check this out. This is an old match. It's great, though. Check this out. And she'll watch it. She's like, yeah, that's a great match. But she doesn't have the background knowledge of who these guys are. So how are you, as a company, introducing these guys from a different promotion? You've got to do a better job of getting them over. You can't just have Excalibur be like, oh my God, it's Will Ospreay. He's great. Like you can't do that because he says that about everybody who comes over from New Japan. Because just about everybody who comes over from New Japan, yeah, they're freaking great. And all these guys are big time and all these guys are awesome. But you need to tell us why. You need to tell us what the story is. Why is there an issue here? You need to highlight some of the stuff that they have done in their career because nobody knows who the hell these guys are if you're not plugged into wrestling like you and I are plugged into wrestling. If you're just a guy, you don't know who the hell these guys are. You know what I'm saying? Like David Finlay came out David Finlay wrestled a match on Rampage or on Dynamite, and it was a good match. David Finlay is a big deal. And yeah, his dad is Fit Finlay. That's not his claim to fame. That's not who he is. He is more than that. Tell his story. Introduce him properly. I feel like AEW, for as much energy as they have done trying to build this pay-per-view, and as much energy and as much time as they have tried to do things really, really well for this Forbidden Door pay-per-view, I think they have dropped the ball on introducing who these guys are that their wrestlers are wrestling. I feel like these guys just show up and you're just expected to know who the hell they are.
Well, see, here's the thing.
And
when you look at the numbers, wouldn't it kind of basically, wouldn't it be fair to surmise that AEW is basically for the hardcore fan? And you and I are both wise. We say, yes, a wrestling company is for the hardcore fans, but if you want to maximize the exposure of your company, then it would behoove you to try and appeal to the masses. AEW, to summarize, has not done the greatest job of appealing to the masses. So that may go in regards to what's next for AEW to make themselves look like WWE. That might entail celebrity wrestling. You know what I mean? Maybe not a Logan Paul, maybe not a Jake Paul, but somebody that has a huge mainstream appeal gets in the ring. And whoever that may be, it has to be really spectacular, and it has to be really shocking in regards to what they do that will make noise. But right now, I think where your beef lies is that AEW doesn't appeal to the masses. They appeal to the hardcore geekniks that show up every single week, Wednesday, Friday, and they're tapping into, right now, the hits. They're playing the hits to those that like professional wrestling, and that's the way it is. Now, can they do more to appeal to the masses? Yes. What that entails in the future, we shall see.
To me, I feel like at certain points, this company really feels like it walks that line of all the shitty things WCW used to do, and it walks the line of doing really, really great wrestling. And sometimes I feel like it's a little bit of an ebb and flow where you get some shitty stuff that WCW did, and it totally crippled that company. And that's always my concern with a new wrestling promotion, because you don't have the lineage, and you don't have – AEW has the financial backing, but you don't have the solid deal and the solid footing that WWE has, where they can make mistakes and it'll be okay. Like, they are locked in with NBC and they are locked in with Fox. AEW is in a spot right now where Warner Brothers isn't really sure what they want to do with this product that they have. I mean, when months ago, years ago, 2-3 years ago, TNT, TBS, those guys, they wanted the wrestling. They wanted to do it. The company just sold again. Like this, you have to realize how many times this media company has been bought and sold. It is almost like a prostitute just getting used on the street, constantly getting bought and sold and traded around. That is what has gone on with TBS and TNT. You are now on a platform that has new investors that are trying to figure out what they want to do with you. You don't necessarily have that stable footing where you can go and you can make those stupid mistakes that WCW made and get away with them, because they can be like, this doesn't make any sense. To me, I feel like there's a good way to tell stories and there's a bad way to tell stories. And yes, AEW is geared towards the hardcore fan. That being said, you still have to make us care about these other guys who are coming in. If Will Ospreay is coming in, 90% of the fan base might know. That 10%'s not sure of who he is. So you have to give us a backstory. Make us care why he's the bad guy. You know what I'm saying? Make us understand why he's the heel and why he has issues with FTR, why he has issues with Trent Beretta. Because Will Ospreay and Trent Beretta have a history. And then they only slightly touched on it. Trent Beretta was like, I didn't like you 6 years ago. Okay, well, what happened 6 years ago? Tell me. Fill me in. Maybe get some images. Something. Anything. And instead, you're kind of left to your own devices and you got to figure it out. And then what happens is, as the match is unfolding, you're going on to Google, you're going on to YouTube, and you're trying to find, well, what happened with Trent Beretta and Will Ospreay? and you're trying to watch whatever while the match is going on. So it totally pulls you away from what's taking place in front of you. It's just, to me, it's bad storytelling. It's poorly done by AEW. I feel like they need to be better, and they need to do better with that stuff. Moving on, Jon Moxley, right pick to go to the Forbidden Door pay-per-view?
Absolutely.
Him to possibly be the interim AEW champ?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. We knew from when the match started.
Yeah. I mean, like when they were like, he's getting a pass, I think everybody knew. Unless there was going to be somebody to really, I don't know, blow your doors off as the Joker. There was really nobody else. It was going to be Jon Moxley. Out of everybody, out of the options that we had, Jon Moxley's the right choice. What was your show of the week?
Ooh, good stuff. Well, when you have a debut of somebody that awesome, I thought that, even though the Cody promo was great and things like that, SmackDown was very decent as well. When you get Gunther, the new IC champ, I thought it was Dynamite.
Yeah, I think it was Dynamite as well. I thought it was a really good show. Gave us quite a bit to talk about, and it was fast paced from beginning to end. I thought Rampage was solid. I think AEW did a really good job this week. I think Raw gave us a absolute shit ton to talk about, but most of that came in the first 2 hours. After that, it was kind of like wah 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 wah. But I'm going to give the point to Dynamite as well. You ready for some news and notes?
Hit me at this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made the list?
So a ton of injury news. CM Punk injury update. Turns out the AEW champ dealing with broken bones in his foot. Yes, multiple broken bones. Has had surgery on them. Surgery was successful. A timeline for his return, not quite ironed out yet. Again, when you have multiple broken bones in your foot, it usually takes a while because you can't power up off your feet. You can't jump. You can't land. You can't do a lot of things. I know initially everybody was saying it was only going to be a couple weeks. When it's multiple bones in your foot, unless they're plating and screwing everything, which then you've got to go through your rehab for that, it's going to be a little bit. So CM Punk will be on the shelf for a little bit. Again, not 100% sure of when he will return. A few more guys banged up on the AEW roster. Bryan Danielson is a little bit beat up. There's no official confirmation to the rumors that he suffered a concussion, but PW Insider was told that Danielson got banged up during the Anarchy in the Arena match and won't be back in the ring until he is cleared. Also, Adam Cole, who was pulled from last week's Dynamite, is also banged up. Cole's case is reportedly not one specific major issue, rather several minor issues at the same time. So AEW decided to give him some time off to rest and heal, so not to compound any potential issues down the line. The belief is that Cole and Danielson will be back in time for the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, if not sooner. Adam Cole, on commentary this week, ends up cutting a promo on Hangman Page, who challenges Okada. It looks like both of those guys want to fight Okada. We'll see what happens there. Sticking with more injuries, Matt Cardona has a major one. Cardona is going to miss a bit of time with a torn bicep muscle. On May 28th at the GCW Downward Spiral, Cardona faced Blake Christian. During the match, he unfortunately injured his arm. Cardona was set to defend the NWA World Heavyweight Championship at NWA Always Ready on June 11th against Nick Aldis. Obviously, he's going to have to forfeit his title. He's going to have arm surgery to get that torn bicep repaired. Now, a media company is forcing this wrestling company into action. An interesting MJF edict has been issued following the AEW star promo on Dynamite last week. Per PW Insider, a Warner Brothers Discovery source has confirmed that an edict has been issued to remove MJF from all AEW promotional spots and commercials moving forward. This report noted that MJF is currently being edited out of any TBS and TNT spots. MJF had notably been removed from Friday's AEW Rampage opening following his promo that blurred the lines between being a work and a shoot on last Wednesday's Dynamite. Also, AEW has unfollowed MJF on Twitter and have pulled all of his merchandise from shopaew.com. So a whole lot going on there. Vince McMahon working to bury Stephanie? You may be unsurprised that the current reported reason for the anger about Stephanie leaving comes directly from Vince McMahon, who appears to be trying to make it look as though she was fired rather than leaving on her own accord. Speaking on the latest Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer said, "I know people who know Vince who have speculated it was essentially the idea that she left. He doesn't like people leaving. The new report comes less than a day after the Business Insider posted a story that cited a quote from a WWE insider who said that it was Vince McMahon's decision for Stephanie to leave her position. The insider essentially blamed Stephanie for some of WWE's financial shortcomings, and it looks like this is all coming directly from Vince. Dad of the year? Possibly? Maybe? I don't know. It's really weird. Fires his son, and now he's saying that he's pushing his daughter out. It's interesting. Meltzer also reported yesterday in a response to the insider that Stephanie is leaving was definitely her decision. Her leaving was 100% her choice. She had been talking about it close to friends for a while, from when Paul, Triple H, Paul Levesque, had heart issues. That said, key people in the company, once she was gone, did want to bury her on the way out. That shocked a lot of people, including me and those close to her. When I noted to someone very high in the food chain about the burial starting, they told me that if they did that publicly, it would be career suicide, only to find out that they had already started. The burial was going to come from the top. There's a much bigger story here. The company outright wanted to bury her. Something happened after she left. Clearly, the company did a total 180 on her about 2 weeks after she left. They never even did that for George Barrios or Michelle Wilson. Stephanie stepped away from her role in WWE so she could take a look after her family off the heels of Triple H rebounding from his heart ailment. So really, really interesting what WWE has done here. Vince McMahon does not like when people just say, I'm out. Vince McMahon likes to tell you where you're going and when you're going. So a little bit interesting there. And finally, Paige on Friday night announced that she is leaving WWE. In a tweet, she stated that July 7th will be her last day with the company. I wonder if Paige makes her way over to AEW, maybe does something. I don't know if she'll ever wrestle again, but she could be a really influential person for the women in AEW, because you have to remember she was the one who started the women's revolution in WWE. She deserves all that credit. She helped set up and give you the likes of your Becky Lynch, your Sasha Banks, your Charlotte Flairs, your Baileys, who's planning to make a return. Paige was very influential and was the groundbreaker and the ground layer for that foundation for the women in WWE. And that's going to be it for this week's wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure anywhere you download and listen to your favorite audio broadcasts, you type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our podcast will find you. Dedicated to Detroit sports, uncensored, unfiltered, often imitated, never, ever duplicated. It's the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You've just downloaded the latest edition of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast, an hour of greatness. Really flew by. Really had an opportunity to have a good time. It flew by, and it was a fun time, man. Good stuff. Great week. Rest up, Cody. Rest up, CM Punk. Rest up, Bryan Danielson. Everybody. Man, it's the summer of injury, 2022. Let's see who survives as we progress in the next few weeks. Cuz let's do this again next week.